Patriots fans, the Butler did it again. Malcolm Butler back in Foxboro. Eliot Wolf has a new title. And what does Tyreek Hill's acquisition by the Miami Dolphins mean for the Patriots' place in the AFC East? Stick around. You're about to be locked in to the Locked On Patriots podcast.
You are Locked On Patriots, your daily New England Patriots podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all of you Foxboro faithful, and thank you once again for making Locked On Patriots your first listen every day. Remember, Locked On Patriots free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, which you might be watching this show on right now. I'm your host, Mike Debate. I also cover your New England Patriots for Patriot Maven of Sports Illustrated. Feel free to reach out to me, interact with me, let me know what's on your mind on Twitter at MDABATENFL. And while you're out there doing some weekend wandering through the Twitterverse, please be sure to follow the Locked On Patriots account as well at LO_Patriots. Pats fans, Malcolm Butler is back in Foxboro. Eliot Wolf has a new title, new director of scouting in Foxboro. What does that mean for the New England Patriots? And of course, a big blockbuster acquisition within the division earlier this week, Tyreek Hill changing the balance of everything that the New England Patriots are trying to achieve in being a top dog, or at least competing for that spot in the AFC East. Does that change that? We'll discuss that, because my guest here today, so nice, we asked him back twice in 1 week, folks. It's always my honor, always my privilege to talk to my Patriots paisan, the resident voice of reason here on Locked On, doing us a big favor here today, and we appreciate you being here to kick off the weekend in style, my friend. Steve Balestrieri, columnist extraordinaire for PatsFans.com, as well as the host of not just one but two amazing podcasts, Patriots 4th and 2 and One Patriots Place. Paisan, thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome back to Locked On Patriots.
As always, thanks for having me. I know Murph and Claire will be jealous now. I've been on twice this week.
Well, you know what? We needed the wisdom and counsel, the voice of reason, to kind of reason things out here for the New England Patriots, because it's been a little bit of a tumultuous week for New England, and I know a lot of Patriots fans are a little uneasy about their place in the division and things that are going on, and we're going to get into the Miami Dolphins' potential new look in the season. And also, we're also going to get into the return of Malcolm Butler as well. But Steve, one of the big pieces of news coming out of the Patriots news cycle Friday morning was Eliot Wolf has a new title in New England. He is now director of scouting. And this, of course, coming from the latest Patriots Do Your Job video that's out on Patriots.com. If you haven't checked it out, folks, I definitely recommend it. A lot of key information there in terms of how the Patriots do their scouting, the types of roles that these guys play. And Eliot Wolf, to me, is a really intriguing character, because early on, when Dave Ziegler took his talents to the Nevada desert, and he's now out in Las Vegas with Josh McDaniels as a member of the Raiders, as their general manager, we heard Eliot Wolf's name come up routinely as someone that could possibly fill that seat. He's got a lot of experience in pro-level scouting, a lot of experience in free agency, the draft, did a great work for the Green Bay Packers, worked a little bit for the San Francisco 49ers. He's been to some very successful organizations, and it looked like the things were starting to align that Wolf was going to end up being the guy here. But Patriots ended up going with Matt Groh, and the one reason why I think they went with Groh, and this is per reports that we heard after Groh was given that title, is that the Patriots wanted to make sure that the person they give the title to, director of player personnel, was going to stick around for the long haul, that they felt that Eliot Wolf, it's only a matter of time before he goes on to greener pastures. Now, if it is a situation where he was only going to be in New England for maybe another year or so, it seems a little odd to me that they're giving him the title. Could this be a sign that the Patriots have bigger plans for Eliot Wolf this year? Or do you think it's just a situation where they're giving him his just due and a well-deserved, probably pay increase, but also a well-deserved title?
I think it might be a little bit of both. I think, it's obviously a little bit of a promotion name-wise there for the work that he's done. But I do think they want to keep him around. I do. They've had so many, the losses from the front office. I think they want a little continuity there for a couple of years until, they can groom some of these other guys. I mean, everyone's getting promoted each year. So they want to give themselves a little bit of leeway in there. And obviously a guy like him with the talent that he has for his job, they want to keep him around.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And look, Wolf is someone that can definitely add a lot of depth to the Patriots scouting department. And especially if he is now going to be a mentor to some of these guys that are coming in that are doing pro level and college level scouting, he's got a great amount of experience in this area. Word has it that he had a very big hand in what the Patriots did last year in free agency in the draft. 2021 was a big year for building this Patriots roster. Not only did they bring aboard a ton of free agents, spent a lot of money in doing so, they also set themselves up well for a young nucleus that really could be the cornerstone of this team for a number of years. Not just Mac Jones at 15, but Ramondre Stevenson in the 3rd round, Christian Barmore in the 2nd round. I think Cam McGrone can be a guy that can really come out of this draft class and show people something. I'm looking forward to seeing what the Patriots look like as opposed to the moves that they did last year, juxtaposed to what they did this year. We're going to get into those types of moves in just a moment. But Steve, you always lend that wisdom and counsel, and I appreciate you lending your insight on Eliot. We'll see what it means for Eliot Wolf. But again, folks, if you haven't had an opportunity to check out that great video on Patriots.com, I encourage you to do so. Before we move on here today, it would not be Friday if I didn't remind you that it's time to indulge a little bit over the weekend. And that means finding your favorite sweet treat. But the good news is that finding that sweet treat doesn't necessarily mean that you have to indulge in unnecessary sugar, in more calories, less protein, things of that nature that just really aren't that good for you. Check out my good friends at Built Bar, because folks, every single time you bite into a Built Bar, you think you're biting into the most delicious candy bar you've ever had, but it's good for you. More protein, less sugar, just more of everything that's good for you, because at Built Bar, they focus on the taste first, but they don't neglect the health aspect of it. They find a way to make these bars healthy. Steve doesn't know how they do it. I don't know how they do it. They just do it, and they do it well. So many delicious flavors like mint brownie, peanut butter brownie. Again, I tell you, that's my favorite, but you'll find your favorite because they have a flavor for everybody. Definitely go today to Built.com and enter the promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your next order at Built.com. That's Built.com. Enter the promo code LOCK15 for 15% off. Built.com.
I love those peanut butter brownies.
They are amazing. They really and truly are amazing. They really are good.
I know that's your paid sponsor, but I'm not getting paid for it, but I like those.
Absolutely. What better testimonial can you get than that? And believe me, I'd be doing commercials for these. We do appreciate their support of Locked On, but believe me when I tell you, folks, I mean, these are, Murph comes on and says that Team Butchie's favorite segment of Locked On Patriots each and every Monday is our Built Bar commercial, because he finds out a little more about them each and every time. And you know how we love our Team Butchie here on Locked On Patriots. Steve, what can I say? I always appreciate you taking the time out to join me here on Locked On Patriots. And we talked a little bit about Eliot Wolf to open the show today and the new title of Director of Scouting, and maybe a little bit of a new role for him. But it's going to be a little bit of familiarity, maybe a little history repeating for the New England Patriots, as they're bringing back a very familiar face. And you know as well as I do, maybe the most indelible play in Patriots history. And that's saying a lot considering the guy that wore number 12 up here for a number of years. But Malcolm Butler making his return to New England. He's coming back on an incentive-laden deal, year out of the NFL, retired from the Arizona Cardinals after the 2021 training camp. But he comes in now very interesting. J.C. Jackson is off in Los Angeles. This is a cornerback crew that right now I believe is in flux, in a little bit of transition. But I think right now that Malcolm coming into this team at this time, lending the experience he can lend, is a very good move for the New England Patriots. What was your reaction to Malcolm's comeback? What do you think it could mean for the Patriots secondary this year?
Well, I was actually really surprised. I had heard, the rumor that they're going to be talking with Malcolm Butler again, and I thought both sides had kind of burned their bridge when he left. So, which leads me to believe that maybe a lot of the talk we heard when he did leave was a lot of frou-frou because he's back. They gave him a 2-year deal. Right now, I think his presence is needed right there. I don't know if he's going to be the answer. He was out of football last year. He is 32 years old, so we don't know what he has left in the tank. But right now, given the status of their cornerback position, and again, we're in March 25th, they need him. So I think they're going to add some extra pieces. I firmly believe they're going to go for a young cornerback early in the draft. But having Malcolm Butler back there is, it's a plus because, one, he knows the defense. So there's not going to be that transition time for him. Oh, he has to learn the playbook. Malcolm knows the playbook.
Right.
So, and he can help some of those young guys, that they already have on the roster and guys that they're going to bring in. Malcolm will be there for them. So, we all know what kind of a teammate he was. His teammates all loved him. It was a great story. I mean, he was a guy that was undrafted. We watched him at training camp. We watched him, shine, earn a spot on the roster, and then earn reps. So I think it's a great move for the Patriots.
Yeah, I think it's a great move for the Patriots, too, for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned. First and foremost is Malcolm is the type of guy that can really play the mentor now, as opposed to the previous 4 years that he was here in New England. Still finding his way. He was an undrafted rookie free agent. Really a lot of fame thrust on him in that Super Bowl 49 moment where he makes the interception. He's all of a sudden he's getting Tom Brady's truck. I mean, things were happening pretty quickly for Malcolm Butler, and he handled it well. And, there was some reported acrimony when he was not played in Super Bowl 52, and a lot of people still make that comparison about what happened there and why it happened. I think that's a conversation for another day. Maybe we'll find out the truth. Maybe we won't. But at the same time, the fact that he's back here shows that whatever it was, whatever reason that was, the two sides were willing to put that aside and let bygones be bygones. And I think Malcolm can thrive here for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned. Something that I think is interesting to me about bringing him back is I think it shows that the Patriots are more likely to play zone coverage this year. This is where Malcolm is at his best. He was very adept in being able to cover in zone in Tennessee. The last year that he was there, earned a 79.5, I believe 79.5, folks, PFF rating when covered in zone coverage. To me, I think this shows that he's got the ability to come back in and be a force in that secondary, because let's face it, they're going to need all the help they can get looking at the types of wide receiver cores that this secondary is going to have to defend against. And that will lead us into our final point here, folks, in just a moment on Locked On Patriots, because so many of the Patriots' rivals seem to be gearing up. And this week, a salvo was definitely fired from the South. Miami putting everyone on notice and acquiring Tyreek Hill and, of course, Teron Armstead on that offensive line as well. Does this mean that Miami has overtaken New England now for a solid second, dare we say maybe even a first-place contender in the AFC East? Steve and I will discuss that point in just a moment. But first, you all know, folks, that college basketball's tournament is in full swing. I'm going to be watching my Friars this weekend. By the time you watch this program, they may either be in the Elite Eight or they may have said c'est la vie to the tournament. But for all of the latest odds, contests, and player props, BetOnline.net is your number one source for all of your sports betting needs and information. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, your podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball, folks. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to sign up and to learn more about the trends and the action. Sorry, folks. BetOnline, where the game starts. Patriots fans, the great Steve Balestrieri, my good friend, did us a very big solid here on the Locked On Patriots, taking us to the weekend in style. And Bud, it's always a blast talking football with you, but we have one more topic to discuss before we take our leave for the weekend here on Locked On Patriots. And I know you, along with everyone else in Patriots Nation this week, saw Miami's acquisition of Tyreek Hill. I was impressed with Teron Armstead going there and being an anchor on that offensive line. But now you look at Tyreek Hill adding a level of speed to this team that was already showing signs of being a dynamically athletic team. You know, Mike McDaniel likes to air it out. He likes to get these guys going in the open field. You have to think that Miami is a much better team than they were just 1 week ago. And a lot of people are thinking that Miami might even challenge Buffalo for the top spot. And that may have thrust the Patriots maybe down to third in the pecking order in the AFC East. Are you as impressed by the national media of the acquisition by Miami of Tyreek Hill? And what does it mean for the Patriots this season?
Well, let me say, first and foremost, I think Tyreek Hill is going to miss Patrick Mahomes a lot more than Patrick Mahomes will miss Tyreek Hill.
Very good point.
I think the acquisition, and I know this sounds blasphemous, but I think their tackle acquisition will be a bigger addition this season than Hill will. I'm one of those that's firmly not a true believer in their quarterback situation with Tua. So, you know, I know Tua's played well against the Patriots, but you know, in those games, that was because they ran the ball really well. So, you know, I with so many new moving parts this year, a new head coach, now you have all these different parts on the offense. It's going to take a while, as we saw with New England last year. When you add all these parts, it takes a while for that group of people to gel. And I think it's going to take them a while. And as I said, I wouldn't be shocked if Teddy Bridgewater is seen this year. I'm just not a believer in Tua. Now, there's no excuses anymore for Tua. They've surrounded him with a bunch of talent. So if he falters in any way or gets hurt, I think that'll be the end of him down there. I don't think they're going to challenge Buffalo. I still think the Patriots will end up number 2 in the division.
See, this is why we have the resident voice of reason on, folks, to bring you into the weekend. It's that type of insight and that type of optimism that we desperately need here in New England. You're talking everybody off the ledge, Steve, and honestly, I completely agree with you on all counts. Now, look, I'm not as low on Tua Tagovailoa as some other people are. I still think there's a decent amount of talent there. I'm not quite sure about the arm strength and being able to get the ball to his targets to give them the opportunity to get the speed and the yards after the catch that they so desperately need. But the one thing that I will say is you absolutely hit the nail on the head. They've surrounded Tua with all of the type of talent that can maximize what he can do well. Let's not forget the Dolphins just didn't add Tyreek Hill for speed. They also added Raheem Mostert and Chase Edmonds at the running back position. These are two of the fastest guys at their given talents in the league right now. You also have Jalen Waddle, who is a tremendous talent. You also get Devontae Parker on that list as well. So, you know, there's a lot of talent in Miami's pass catching and running abilities. This is going to be an interesting year for the Dolphins. And in order for them to put it all together, it does have to start with the quarterback being able to get them the ball. And if they do get solid blocking from the tackle position out of Armstead and the offensive line that Miami has put in place, then yeah, maybe they can make some noise. But I do agree with you. I still don't think they're at Buffalo's level yet. I think Buffalo is still the class of the division, and I still think the Patriots are a lot better than people are giving them credit for. I know they may not have the sexy acquisitions that everybody's been looking for, but Bill Belichick is going to quietly build a roster that's going to keep him in contention. He usually does it, and I think that's going to be the case again this year. Of course, Steve, all bets are off if a certain player playing on the other side of the Florida Peninsula right now decides he wants to change teams. Folks, we're going to talk about that a lot next week. No, I'm just kidding, folks. I'm just kidding. This is Locked On Patriots. We're going to keep it Patriots-centric. For the love of God, please, folks, I encourage you, keep an open mind when you hear some of the rumors that are floating around out there. I'm not disparaging anyone. Where it's coming from comes from reliable sources, but at this point, it's also something that, you want to go ahead and just use common sense when it comes to a lot of that. And Steve, I think that's a great way to take us into the weekend, my friend. Thank you so much for coming today and for joining me here on Locked On Patriots and lending the reasonable wisdom and counsel that we all know and love. Folks, please follow my good friend, Steve Balestrieri, on Twitter, on the Bird app. Every single time that he puts pen to paper or voice to microphone, Steve always nails it and does it with a class and a level of optimism and a level of insight that you just simply can't find anywhere else. That's why he's my Patriots paisan and such a valued member of the Locked On Patriots family. Steve, what can I say? Thank you so much for joining me today, buddy.
Oh, always my pleasure. And remember, Mike, sometimes common sense is an uncommon virtue.
I love it. Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself, and I'm not going to try to top that other than to say thank you all for tuning in today and for continuing to make Locked On Patriots a daily part of your New England Patriots coverage. Remember, Locked On Patriots is free and available on all platforms, not just for the Patriots folks, but for Locked On, all different kinds of NFL coverage. Check out my good friends at the Locked On NFL podcast as well. On behalf of my good friend, Steve Balestrieri, I'm Mike Debate. Thank you so much for joining me today. Stay safe, stay well, be the change that you wish to see in the world. Have a great day, everyone.